So please give a very warm welcome to Maria.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Pleased to be here. Yes, I'm the country manager for Italy and France at Luno. For those of you who haven't heard of Luno, we're a global cryptocurrency company currently operating in over 40 countries worldwide. We have nearly 3 million customers all over the world and on track to expand to up to 10 more countries in Africa until the end of the year. So we're a wallet, an exchange, and an API for businesses and merchants to integrate with cryptocurrency services. And essentially, we just want to make it easy to buy and safe to buy, sell, and store cryptocurrencies. So I'm not going to talk about Luno today. It's all about crypto for good. So like you said, our mission is to upgrade the world to a better financial system. And I want to explain briefly to you guys what it's really about. So at Luno, we think a lot about how people are going to be using money within the next 10 or 20 years' time. And if you look at a lot of consumer trends and technology, you know, it's pretty clear that we're going to be living in a world where it's going to be easier, cheaper, and faster to move money around. There's going to be, systems are going to be more interoperable. There's going to be more transparency, better UX, and more privacy. So there's a long list of different advantages that we see, and actually, interestingly, when we speak to like FinTech companies all over the world, a lot of banks and regulators even, we kind of all see the same future coming about. So we sort of have the same goal, we just go about it in different ways. So we agree where we're going, but we kind of disagree about how we're going to get there and how long it's going to take. So the reason, you know, we try and tackle this problem from an angle of a decentralized cryptocurrency because we feel like in order for this future to come about, we need some sort of global system, payment protocol, or currency to innovate on. That's going to be open for everybody to participate. So we think that the best way to reach that level, that stage, that future is from the angle of decentralized cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the reason why it's important, and this is what I really want to talk about, is that you know, if you kind of look back to when you were little, and you know, a couple of decades ago, what mobile broadband and what internet has done to the world is absolutely incredible. It empowered billions of people around the world to have access to knowledge, information, high fidelity communications, and also a lot of very efficient, low-cost services. But the truth is that even today, you know, we have over 1.7 billion people around the world who have no access to financial system. And that's a huge chunk. You know, 69% of adults globally have a bank account, but we're talking about over nearly 2 billion people who don't have that privilege and access to financial system. So when you look here, this is a more sort of thorough breakdown of where those communities with no bank account are and without the access. So we're a company that started off in South Africa, so our operations have expanded through Africa from 2013 through to Asia, and only recently we went to Europe. So our core markets were really Africa and Asia and emerging markets, and I think that's really important to talk about in terms of what is the opportunity really for cryptocurrency to change the world for the better, to empower people like internet and mobile did. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with the concept of African Renaissance, but essentially, in a nutshell, it's a concept that's started in the early 40s, and it's about African nations and states to come together and sort of, you know, advance the African nation in terms of economically, culturally, scientifically. And, you know, the thinkers and intellectuals, African intellectuals that have been talking about it and sort of advanced that thought forward through the decades have been talking about kind of obvious things like human rights and individualism, dignity. But what really comes through as like what they talked about as well, and what was really clear, is that all human progress is largely driven by collaboration, consolidation, and economies of scale. And what I wanted to highlight here is that money is no exception to that rule. Consolidation is, helps, like when people come together, this is the one common thing for all those, thoughts that were moving the nations forward, are all about collaborating, getting people together, political will, and consolidation. And we see those examples in, a lot of different monetary unions that are happening around the world. So there's actually it's in terms of finance, it's not as fragmented as people may think. What's really important is that we think that, and I think what comes also from the whole concept of African Renaissance is that this comes from human nature. People naturally come together, get together, and advance those thoughts forward. And we can see this in the creation of nation states. We can see it also in big companies like Facebook or Google, or we can even see this in terms of operating systems like iOS and Android. Everything's congregated to one. So there's really a trend that people come together, work together, and collaborate to create different things to basically reduce the cost. And in terms of consolidation in the world of finance, we see the value added in monetary unions in the US and European Union, obviously, but also beyond around the world. And this is happening also in Africa. So there's a lot of data points around monetary union and around the benefits and the value that we can create with cryptocurrency or with a common currency. And I created this barometer here to show you a couple of numbers that can show how interoperability creates value. So most obviously, remittances. It's said to be worth around 40 billion a year, and this is when people are transacting cross-border. And obviously there's a lot of fees involved. Some say it's around 20%, some say it's 5%. Let's estimate it to be 10%. This means that there's, here with 40 billion worth overall, $4 billion worth of money that is sort of gone, just because of extra fees, conversions of, from currency to currency. So there's a lot of capital that could be unlocked and freed. The same goes for e-commerce. It's said to reach over $30 billion within a few years. And if you think about it, it's quite ridiculous that 20 years ago we could buy something in a shop and you didn't have to pay a fee to a third party to do that. It was a simple transaction. But now we gravitated into a world where when you transact with people, there's a lot of third parties involved, and there's basically a lot of, everybody gets a cut of the payment. So there's a lot of money that is going away that could be unlocked if we were operating in the same currency, in the same financial system. And there's this view, and there's a lot of research that's supporting the view that if the capital controls in Africa were to be relaxed, up to 50% of the trade in Africa would go up 50%. And also bear in mind that remittances, that these numbers below, they don't even include inter-African trade, so business-to-business payments. So there's even more money and there's even more capital that's kind of being lost along the way because of third parties being involved. And there's also a question of stable currency. So that's maybe a problem that's not really familiar to us living in Europe, but in African countries, it's a major issue. There's often no stable governments. There's very high inflation, hyperinflated countries, where currency stability would bring enormous an astronomical number in value if they were to operate in a single financial system. And then those points there are sort of learnings that come from research around and case studies around monetary unions like the EU or the US, like price transparency, cross-border employment, simplified billing, financial stability, lower interest rates, et cetera, et cetera. So why cryptocurrency for Africa? Well, like I mentioned before, the change usually comes from political will. And in Africa at the moment, and it's such a fragmented continent, and the concept, like, just not to be wrong, the concept of United States of Africa has been going on forever, but it's just not happening. And the African Union is trying to do something about it, but there are many reasons why it's not happening. And some states are much stronger than the others. There is also a lot of risk, sort of associated with the smaller states, and there's also conflicts around and this doesn't obviously inspire. It's not an incentive. So political will is huge, and if it doesn't come with sort of people's desire, it's just not going to happen. So the reason why we believe cryptocurrency is the perfect solution or this incredible opportunity is because we believe that it has to come from grassroots level. So if people are going to set their mind to it, it doesn't matter who's in power, it doesn't matter who's in government, politicians don't matter. It's like, it's going to happen because it's going to come from bottom up. And the reasons why we believe that cryptocurrency, like, there's a lot of inherent values and a lot of interesting characteristics of cryptocurrency that make this a very compelling solution to be used for the case of Africa. And obviously it's trustless, it's open, anybody can innovate on it, it's neutral, there's a lot more security. Some of those things are obviously debatable in terms of the neutrality. For those of you who are more sort of into Bitcoin and into cryptocurrencies from the technical point of view. But what's really important is that in terms of addressing corruption and the transparency that the blockchain offers in terms of tracking transactions, where the money goes, where it's been, it's a very interesting use case in Africa, and it's potentially an aspect that would drive it forward. And that's why the cryptocurrencies offer that solution over other currencies that could be picked. Just to briefly touch upon where we are now, we're at the very beginning at an asset stage in terms of adoption of cryptocurrencies. And that means that cryptocurrencies are, to a large extent, used as an investment, an instrument for speculation, to some extent, obviously, used for e-commerce and remittances, but it's still tiny. And it's only going to get interesting from the transactional point of view once more and more people are going to be using it. So we're still at the very, very early stage. It's a new technology. It's a brand new technology, really, but it's got an incredible potential to disrupt this financial system and to offer solutions that we were missing before, to sort of get the emerging markets to catch up and to be part of the financial system to essentially increase the wealth retention of their population. So just to sum up, because I know my time's running out, and I used to think that I will have more time to talk about this. I just want to say that when it comes to the African thought and the ideology or the sort of concepts that I talked to you about, it's important to note that it's a increasingly consolidated environment that we're talking about, and from the point of view of Europe, we don't really see the pain points that people in emerging markets are experiencing. And it's absolutely crucial for institutions to adopt technology and to sort of allow the leapfrog, the innovation to actually drive the consolidation of the markets on continents like Africa. Another thing that I wanted to say is that when people were talking about this, like there's a speech in South Africa in 1996, so a long time ago, about African nations coming together and sort of innovation and getting power into people's hands. Nobody really thought that this would come from, and they were talking about freedom, democracy, and things like that. But ironically, mobile phones have done more for that than any politician ever did in Africa. So, and probably globally, it's empowered so many people to have access to information, to knowledge, etc. So you know, in 20 years' time, like 20 years ago, nobody would have thought that we'd be here. So it's the same thing, you know, I said we're at the very beginning of this road, but the same could happen with the financial system. So I just want to conclude saying that we believe that the African Renaissance is happening. We think that it's going to happen from bottom up, that the inherent values and characteristics of cryptocurrencies offer this incredible opportunity for emerging markets to catch up and to empower, you know, the people, the 1.7 billion people who are still behind, don't have bank accounts and don't participate in a, you know, basically they pay, the poorer you are, the bigger your fees are, you know, the lower the chances to actually advance in society are. We believe that cryptocurrency will lead the way and will change the world from bottom up.